Welcome to another episode of the Unfiltered Nonprofit Podcast. I'm Sherry Chen, your nonprofit CFO, and I'm thrilled to have you join me on this journey. This podcast dives into the real world of nonprofit leadership, sharing inspiring stories, experiences, and the truth about what it takes to operate a nonprofit successfully. Think of this as your mastermind session on the go. Now, without further ado, please welcome today's nonprofit leader. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Unfiltered Nonprofit Podcast, where my main goal is to help nonprofit leaders to mastermind with each other. And this is a safe space that we can learn from successful leaders like today's guest, Hailey Hechtman. Welcome, Hailey.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great to be here.
Yeah, Hailey is our guest today, and she's the executive director of the Unsinkable. So tell us a little bit about Unsinkable and your journey to become the executive director of Unsinkable.
Yeah, so Unsinkable, we're a national mental health charity. We were founded in 2019 by Olympian Silken Laumann, and our focus is on harnessing the power of storytelling to support people on their mental health journey. I've been with the organization now for just under 2 years and have been working in the mental health social sector space my whole career. I worked in crisis lines, I worked in employment, I worked in developmental disabilities, but really at the heart of my career has been this passion and drive towards mental health. So being able to come into this role with Unsinkable has been a huge gift.
So I looked up your bio before I was trying to do some preparation, and I found that you actually found a Yukon support line. You started that support line for mental health. Recent, right? Tell us a little bit about that. What drove you to start something on your own?
Yeah, so when I was in university, I actually studied psychology, and I realized in my second year just how strange it was to be studying a area where I didn't actually interact with people. Like, I looked at them through the lens of a textbook and theory, but I didn't have the opportunity to work with them directly. And so started volunteering at a crisis line really early on when I was a student and learned to really love that space, being able to create not only opportunities for people to connect with each other in a non-judgmental and anonymous way, but also I saw how much people really ended up relying on the support that came from crisis lines. And so early in my career, I worked in that space. I ran that crisis line eventually, and then I went on to the Ontario Association of Distress Centers. And then when we had an opportunity, my partner and I, to move to Whitehorse, it was the first thing I looked at. I was like, oh, well, I've worked in crisis lines, so I would like to work in that space there. And when I got there, there wasn't anything. And so I ended up working in a peer support organization and asking them, do we want to bring something like this to the territory? Would it be helpful? And so we just started asking questions. We talked to the RCMP, we talked to First Nations communities, we talked to the mental health providers and to people in general in the community. And it was an overarching, yes, this would be helpful, especially for small communities that don't have a lot of anonymity. When you live in a place with 200 people, it's hard to feel like you have anonymous space to just talk about how you're feeling and what you're going through. And there's a lot of mixed relationships in those communities. So ended up putting forward a proposal. We applied for some funding with a few different partners and ended up bringing on the Bell subsidiary, Bell Let's Talk, and the government of Yukon to start the project there, and got to bring it to life. And that was now 2014, which feels like a long time ago.
Yeah, so it's 11 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Wow, that's such a long time ago. But you put that into, essentially, you apply for funding. And so I'm assuming that you actually set up an organization. So you started this organization, nonprofit organization for this. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And how did you, this is not easy. I mean, I can relate to it because I'm a business owner. I start my business from scratch. And for someone who has a passion to find an organization out in Yukon, which I assume is also not easy because it's a new space and new space for you as well, because you're trying to become a local person there. So how was that journey? I know you gone through the funding, now you got the funding, and then you have to build up the system, and because you can't be the one that's always picking up the phone as well.
Yeah, so it was a very much a collaborative effort. So the organization that I had been working with at the time, they were a small peer-to-peer organization. We actually started the line through them initially. So we kind of created it as its own project. And once we had some funding, we started the process of recruiting volunteers. Many distress and crisis lines across the country are volunteer-led. And so we started recruiting from the community. One of the things that actually stands out in my mind is just how much the community rallied behind us. I think we ended up needing, initially we thought we would need about 20 volunteers to start the line, and we had, I think, 40 or so applicants from across the community. And every one of them, I sat down and I did an interview with them. And what we heard over and over again is, I would have really liked to have had this when I was struggling, and that's why I want to volunteer. And so there was so much heart behind the line starting out. We ended up partnering with the Distress Centers of Ottawa, and they came up and did training, offered the training to all of the volunteers in assist and mental health first aid and crisis line skills, which was really helpful. So working with them, I had a relationship with them previously when I was in Ontario. And then building, policies and practices and all of those pieces from there. We ended up also partnering with a local organization that gave us in-kind office space to host the line.
Oh, wow.
So we had a lot of community support, which was amazing. And then as the organization took off and started to grow, we realized pretty quickly the small organization that was connected to it didn't really have the capacity to sustain it in the long term. They had their own programs, their own priorities. So we ended up moving it to a larger counseling mental health organization. And so I helped with the transition from the smaller organization to the bigger overarching organization to provide that longer term support.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
The stories that I heard the whole time, I'm thinking, wow, Hailey is really good at building partnership with different people and leveraging her relationship. That is really cool. So you started off creating the organization, rally the volunteers, and then but you leverage the system and relationships that you have from previous role and experience. And that is how we need exactly what we need in this time, especially during this tariff situation. We're in a trade war, we're in a wall. I don't know if people actually recognize it. Uncertainty, I think partnership is extremely important. And good for you to have the foresight to transition the whole project into a bigger mental health organization. So that is also something that is very admirable.
Oh, thank you. And then it went through another transition later. That larger organization that we ended up moving it to, they had closed down. They had a couple of, big changes on their end. And so now, 10 years later, it's operated under the CMHA in the Yukon. So I wasn't a part of that transition, but it was nice to see it so important to the community that regardless of what happened with the bigger organization that was supporting it, they moved it to a new one, which was great to see.
Yeah. Wow. Now, speaking of relationship and creativity, I think you're super creative to think of all these things. And I think maybe not last week, maybe about a couple weeks ago now, a few weeks ago, I feel like last time when I spoke to you, you were telling me you were so excited about the new project that you're on and the relationship that you created and the number of eyeballs that are on this new campaign. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so at Unsinkable, we have this beautiful campaign that was going on throughout the month of May. It was called Fragments, Stories That Heal, where we worked with our real storytellers to capture their experiences, both visually and in audio. Those visuals were turned into billboards, and the audio was turned into videos and new radio ads and podcast ads as well. And all of that done in kind and in partnership with an advertising agency in Toronto. And so that was something, we were so excited to be able to bring that to life. As a small organization, we would never have been able to afford to bring this campaign into practice on our own. It had billboards in 25 locations across the GTA, including Dundas Square, which I got to go to Toronto a couple of weeks ago and see it in person, which was so exciting.
Awesome.
And our founder, Silken, was with me, and so she got to see it in person. And being able to work closely with an organization and have those in-kind contributions, whether it's media, whether it's creative, like having them actually understand what we do and understand our mission, and then being able to put together these beautiful creatives is something that, we have lots of wonderful creative energy on our team, but we wouldn't have come up with that concept on our own. So it was so great to be able to have that relationship with them where they sat down with us, they got to know our work, and they came up with these beautiful ideas to amplify it. And since then, I go into our back end of our website every day throughout the month of May, and we've had a huge increase in our website traffic. And the thing that's really fascinating is that with the website traffic, you can see where the traffic sources are coming from. And 45% this month were coming direct, which means people were seeing it or hearing it and typing in our website address versus, clicking a link. So it just goes to show those kinds of things where you have visibility make a big difference. And while, it wasn't a financial contribution from that organization, it was hugely beneficial to us and something that took capacity that we wouldn't have otherwise been able to have and brought it into the organization.
Yeah, I guess the learning lesson here for me, it's obviously you're super creative. And I think in the nonprofit space, a lot of the time it all starts with having a conversation and being flexible and not just being fixated on this dollar figure contribution, right? I guess many people are not as creative as you. So how did you even think about this type of contribution or have that conversation to begin with?
Yeah, well, I think so much of part of it is creativity, part of it is relationships, not just my own, but we have incredible board members at Unsinkable. We have our wonderful founder, we have advisors, we have our team. And so being able to look around and say, okay, these are the things that we're trying to accomplish. Do we have people who are able to support us within our network? It doesn't need to be, just me who is making those outreaches. We've had so much success with our various committees reaching out to their communities and their networks. And one of the biggest ways I think that starts is really talking about why we're passionate about our work. Like as an organization, we are founded through lived experience. We were started because Silken shared her story and she opened up about her mental health journey, and that invited people in to want to share their experiences with her. And that's why she started Unsinkable. And that's been so at the core of our work. So being able to really talk about this is an organization built for community, with community. I've shared my story. Many of our team members have shared their story. So I think that's been a huge attractor, building relationships in community, is people seeing that, we're not doing something as a kind of service provider, service user relationship the same way of a lot of traditional mental health organizations do. We really invite in community to join us and to build momentum and to use storytelling as a platform for change.
100%. Earlier we just exchanged a conversation. I myself loves marketing, and marketing for the large part is telling a story with a message. And I thought Unsinkable has this incredible mission, and that not just for mental health. I think a lot of nonprofit out there can really learn from. The ability to tell stories and leverage those stories to achieve the goal, whether it's advocacy, whether it is sharing a message, whether it is raising funds. I found in my experience from working with a lot of nonprofit is that we're lacking that. We're lacking the ability to share the story and what we're doing and be consistent, because Unsinkable is very consistent. Day in and day out, releasing the not similar content. Everyone's story is different. So that I really admire, because I'm a marketer, so I have another level of respect because of that.
Well, and I think, when you're talking about nonprofits not being great at telling their story, I think there's so many amazing organizations across the country doing great work. And if you think about storytelling as a way of showcasing not only your work, but the impact that you've had on your community, and thinking about how can you center the people who have been positively benefited by the work that you do in sharing those stories. We actually did a project last year in Quebec where we partnered with 8 grassroots community mental health organizations across the province. And we worked with an individual who had gone through their programs, or we worked with someone who worked at that organization. And the focus was on the person. So it wasn't, I think a lot of impact storytelling sometimes can come across as promotional, where the focus is on, tell me how this organization benefited you. But we didn't do that. We focused on this person's journey and what they had experienced, and having access to that organization was just one part of their overall experience. But all of those organizations, all 8 of those organizations, were then able to use those really beautiful, really cinematic, really person-centered videos to share their impact with their funders, with their community, in a way that felt honest and vulnerable and authentic, versus feeling like an interview where we're trying to get you to tell us like we're great.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's a difference, I think. I think when we talk about storytelling in nonprofit, we often think about testimonials, and we think about like, how do we showcase what we're doing? And you can do that in a much realer way if you focus on the person first and the organization second, versus the other way around.
Hello, Unfiltered Nonprofit listeners. It's Cherry Chen here, your host and the CEO of Otis Financial Solutions. Let's talk about something that can be a major headache for many nonprofits: managing your finances. Are you feeling overwhelmed by budgeting, financial reports, or keeping up with compliance? You're not alone. Many nonprofit leaders struggle with these issues too, but you don't have to. At Otis Financial Solutions, we specialize in making financial management easy for nonprofit leaders and associations leaders. For over 18 years, we've been turning financial stress into peace of mind. Our services are designed to meet your unique needs, from day-to-day bookkeeping to strategic financial planning. Imagine having more time to focus on your mission, knowing that your finances are in experts' hands. If that sounds like something you need, I'm offering a no-obligation 20-minute consultation. Let's discuss your challenges and explore how Otis can help you achieve your goals. Visit nonprofitcfo.ca. Yeah, 100%. That that is a very powerful angle that I think nonprofit as a sector can leverage a lot more.
Yeah. Because everybody's doing amazing work.
Focusing on doing and forget about like, hey, like we have to loop back, and then that is where you can go to your funder to ask for more, because that's your report card.
Yeah.
You have to dress up your report card, right? Yeah, that's amazing. So now I usually ask a question for the purpose of the podcast and for the benefit of our listener, the 9 listeners that I have, what are one of the biggest challenge that you've seen and so far that you have to overcome in your career that our listeners would be able to learn from?
Yeah, love it. I've had so many moments of struggle throughout my career, or learning moments, or moments where I felt completely out of my depth. I will say, I started my career in the nonprofit space really young. Like my first, quote unquote, official executive director role, I was 25 years old. And I came into an organization that had a 30-year history and had, 40 employees, and had just unionized and had, some contentious challenges over the previous years before I joined. And that was a really important time for me to learn about giving people space to show you the way. I didn't walk into that organization assuming I knew everything, because I didn't know everything. I had a good background in the mental health space. I understood how organizations work. I am able to motivate people, and I'm able to see the connection and the puzzle pieces really well. But I didn't assume that I knew how the organization operated or what would work best. So I really relied on the team. And I asked them, where do you see this organization going? What has been the pitfalls? What have been the challenges? And that was a really important lesson at that point in my career that I've taken into different organizations since then, of really listening to people. A big challenge, though, I would say throughout, is just losing the assumption that it's all going to be really linear. Because I think we have this idea in our mind, especially I think we're socialized at a really young age to believe our career is like, we do this and then we do this and we do this. And it's very like there's a progressive just line that we're able to easily track. But I've I've been in lots of different types of organizations. I've been in small organizations, big organizations. I've come into organizations where I really understand the background and the material and the impact and the mission. And I've come into others where I've had to learn a lot more because I wasn't as aware. And so I've given up on this assumption that it's all going to be this one straight line.
It's always
and
going to be like that.
yeah, and instead taking chances. And I think that's been really helpful with coming into Unsinkable. I left a much larger organization that was funded by all three levels of government, where I had a big team, where I had a lot of support, where we ran social enterprises. And I left that for a small startup nonprofit with a very small team, and where it was just me doing a lot of the things in the beginning. Now I'm very lucky. We've built the team up and we have some great people who are running our programs. But I think that's a chance that I wouldn't have taken if I didn't give myself the space to let go of the assumption that you just keep building in one direction. And it's been the best decision I've made, is coming into this organization where I've been able to grow it. But if I had just gone off the assumption that the next organization in my trajectory is bigger, then I don't think I would have had the same experience that I'm having now. And I had to let go of that. I got a lot of judgment actually from a few people when I left my role, not in a negative way, just questions of, oh, well, at the time when I applied for the role at Unsinkable, there were a lot of community health centers and larger organizations in Ottawa who had vacancies. They were going through a big transition. And people asked, well, why didn't you apply to work there? Or why didn't you think about going to a larger organization, or an organization that was more, quote unquote, like steady? But there was something that called me to this work. And there's something that was so exciting and invigorating about building something with people. And that's what I've enjoyed most about this job, is I've been able to grow it with a team, with a board, with advisors, with our founder. Like, it's been a group effort, and I really like being a part of that.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, one final question.
Yeah.
I don't want to keep you here forever. I know you have an appointment to get to. The one final question. With the current economic situation, it's pretty challenging out there. I was just at a fundraising event yesterday, a learning day for a fundraiser yesterday, and sitting across from me was someone at lunchtime. Just saying, like, I'm in fundraising. I've never seen it this bad. I've been in it for 20 years. So how are you handling this type of economic challenge? So then, I mean, your top line is going to fluctuate up and down, or maybe there's a downturn for the next few years. Like, how are you using your creative energy to overcome all these challenges?
Yeah, I can't say I have a magical answer to that question. I think we're still learning too, and as things change, you continue to adapt. But I would say for us, partnership has been so key to how we're addressing those changes. We've co-applied for funding with different organizations. We've reached out to see how we can add capacity to existing projects. The in-kind piece, like I said, has been so incredibly helpful. I don't think always nonprofits consider in-kind as valuable as resources. And obviously, when you need to pay people and pay your bills, it doesn't matter how much in-kind you have. But there's so much capacity building that can come from having access to pro bono work, whether it's, we had a partnership last year with a big technology company who helped us with project management. They donated that person's time, a project manager on their team, to help us look at our systems and look at how we could become more efficient and how we could better organize our structures. And so if I had to invest in someone coming in, that would have been cost prohibitive for us. But because they were able to give us that expertise through their team and through that in-kind contribution, it made a big impact for how we go forward. So I think thinking outside the box, thinking about, are there organizations that you want to leverage within your network? Are there people that you can connect with? I think people are our best resources. Some of the greatest opportunities I've had have come from random relationships where I met someone at a conference, or I saw someone on LinkedIn saying some really interesting things and I reached out to them. Like, not being afraid to connect and build relationships, because you never know where they're going to go. And I've seen that time and time again. One of our team members, who is fantastic, I met him four years ago at this point, because I saw him performing a spoken word in a training session that I was taking online during the pandemic. And I reached out and I said, I'm not sure if we'll ever connect on anything or work together, but there was something that really drew me to your work, and I really like what you're doing. And now 4 years later, he's running our storytelling program at Unsinkable. So you never know where those will go, and I think that's a huge safeguard against the challenges that we're facing economically, is coming together.
Yep. Awesome. That is a great way to deal with these ups and downs, especially globally, not just within Canada, right?
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Hailey,
for
pleasure. Coming on this show, and I really appreciate how authentic you are, sharing all your stories and and your ups and downs and your success as well, and your creative energy. So I hope our listener will be able to learn from your creative thinking and think outside of the box, and we all have a solution to face this challenge together.
Oh, thank you. It's been great.
Thank you. As we wrap up, I want to share a bit more about what we do at Altus Financial Solutions. For the past 18 years, Altus Financial Solutions has been dedicated to enhancing the financial management and strategic planning capabilities of hundreds of associations and nonprofits across Canada. Our extensive experience has enabled us to deliver tailored financial solutions that drive growth and enhance sustainability for nonprofits and associations. If you are interested in learning more about how Altus Financial Solutions can support your organization, I would love to offer you a no-obligation 20-minute call. Let's discuss your unique challenges and explore how we would be able to help you achieve your goals.